and welcome back to episode 2 now, or part 2, I guess I should say, of the we'll just say it's the Africa podcast. Is that I guess that's a fitting
South
name for this.
Africa.
South Africa. My bad. I feel so bad now. South Africa podcast. But we're gonna jump right back into where we left off. So for those of you who were just listening to part 1, we finished off by talking about the sightseeing and all that good stuff. But now we're gonna jump into the actual meeting of the people of South Africa and people around Cape Town and all that. What were the people like? And can you guys just describe for me what it was like meeting the different people? Zach, we'll start off with you since you didn't get to talk much last time.
When you say people, you're talking about the people in the ministry or just the people in general?
Like both, honestly, both.
Okay. Well, the people there are so much, I don't know, nicer. That's the best way I can put it, because I was going from Boston and New Jersey, where the people were
that northern attitude.
Yeah, they're pretty rude. And going, especially in the airport, and then going from there to the people in South Africa, which like the employees specifically, they're always smiling, they're always wanting to serve you. They were just so nice, and just it was like the people there, especially like when I travel places, I'm usually not going there for the people.
Yeah.
Like I probably should, but I'm usually going for like the sightseeing and the views. Like the people don't really stand out to me.
Yeah.
But going to Africa, like Africa is not Africa without the people of Africa, and the people there are just amazing. They're like a breath of fresh air. Like just the atmosphere that they carry is just it's so much peaceful. There's so much joy, so much authenticity.
Yeah.
And they're not fake. Like there's a lot of fake people in America that just try to like put on the fake smile, try to give you fake love, blah blah blah. Over there they're very genuine, very down to earth, very real and authentic. And yeah, I just love the people there.
Tyler, how would you describe the people of South Africa?
The people of South Africa are like their trees.
Yes.
So while we were there, I didn't even know this, but while we were there, I seen pine trees. Didn't know they had pine trees.
Yeah, I wouldn't think
Africa.
They had pine trees.
But they do. They have short needle pines, which we have.
Look nothing like our pine trees.
Exactly.
They're different.
We've got the exact same kind of trees, short needle pines. I see them every day I'm in the woods.
Yeah.
Exact same trees. What do our trees look like? A freaking pole.
Yep.
Do you know what their same exact pine tree looks like in Africa?
I have no idea.
It comes up and then the limbs shoot off of it. Yeah. And so I was looking at these trees and I was like, man, that's odd. None of our trees do that unless like they get hit by lightning or there's some kind of deformity in the tree.
Yeah.
And all the trees that we use, like pine trees, they're grown straight up and they grow so fast.
Yeah.
And they use them for like poles and wood and all that
good
stuff.
timber wood, yeah.
Yep.
And then the trees in Africa, exact same kind of tree, grows out. And it's kind of like what Zach was saying. The people of Africa are nice, but for me, what I saw in the people and in the trees was that they're receptive. So if I'm receptive of something, I'm spread out.
Yeah.
You know? And for me, like, especially in America, exact same kind of tree. We're people, just like they are.
Yep.
And our trees look like this. Like, pick me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Right here.
Preach.
Yep.
And then you go over there and all their stuff is like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit weird compared to people to trees.
I see what you're saying.
But for me, I just noticed that, like, we sat down for lunch one day, and I was like, man, that's a pine tree. I recognized the pine tree, but I didn't recognize the pine tree.
Yeah.
I had to look at it to be like, that's a dang short needle pine tree, just like we have.
Yep.
Grows completely different here.
Yeah.
But the people grow completely different there.
Yep.
I don't think I'd seen one person in South Africa that was like a pick me kind of person.
Yep.
I mean, obviously you got people that want to work and they want to be picked to go work.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
But I'm saying like there's not.
Or the street vendors that
One of
it's
the
like,
street vendors,
pick my booth.
Yeah, pick my booth.
Yeah.
You're coming by this stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they're just making a living. But
Yeah.
in America,
Yes.
you've got a lot of people that are
Look at me.
self-centered.
Yeah, yeah,
Look
for
at
sure.
me, how tall I stand,
Yeah.
like our trees.
Look how perfect
Yeah.
I
Their
am.
trees grow out more
Yeah.
than they grow up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're still tall, but they
Mhm.
don't just shoot straight up like our trees do.
Yeah.
They grow out just as much as they grow up. So yeah, they're still kind of tall, but they're not as tall.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they're receptive. They look receptive.
Mhm.
I don't. That's hard to explain, but their trees look receptive.
Yeah.
It's such a receiving place, and I think that's probably got a lot to do with why they're so real. Like
Yeah.
Zach was saying, that was another thing that I noticed about the people, even like not just the people at the church or at business, but even the people that have nothing
Yeah.
Yep.
are the same way.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was for me going into Egoli. I was like, man, these because in America, which is mostly what I'm used to,
Yeah.
we've been to other places before, but
Yeah.
never Africa. For me, I'm expecting these people to look at us and see us in a different way and maybe not be so receptive
Yeah. Yeah.
because of where we come from and because we're well off, compared to them. I know some of us, are better off than others here.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying we all have everything we've ever wanted, but we have a lot more than they have.
Yeah.
And so my expectation of somewhere like Egoli would be kind
Yeah.
of like, wait a minute, why are you here?
Right. Right.
Kind of thing.
Mhm.
How's it going to benefit you being here? Because I think that's probably how we're looked at as a society in America.
Yeah.
Because most people do things because it's going to benefit them.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Pick me.
What's going to pick me as long as it benefits me. But if
Yeah.
it doesn't, I just want to stay right here until something does come along
Yeah.
to benefit me.
Yeah.
But over there, it's like they're just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's like embedded in the culture over there. It's not like a pick me culture like we've built
Yeah,
up in
no.
America.
Not at all.
That's good. That's good. I really like how you're describing that. I mean, kind of like sheds light too on the problem in American society. It's like, we have this, like, the American dream is like the White House with the picket fence around it. It's like, do what you could do to benefit yourself and make your family good, right? And you build yourself up. It's I feel like we had good intentions, it seemed like, in the beginning, but honestly, it seems like it's come to bite us really, really bad, because now we have all these people who constantly build themselves up, and they've created this culture of, look at me and how great I am. And it's almost, we've tried to make ourselves godlike in a sense, and it's really honestly tearing our society apart. I mean, our politics and everything, it's really embedded in that, and it's kind of tearing it to pieces. And I know they have their own problems there too, I'm sure, but I think that is a good model to probably look at, is that, that openness, and that, not that pick me lifestyle that we've kind of built up here in a way. But Charlotte, how would you describe the people?
I agree wholly with what they've been saying. It's instead of a self-centeredness, it's almost like a community-centeredness,
Mhm.
which is really refreshing to see coming from America, where it's very pick me, very self-centered.
Yeah.
The only word that keeps coming up in my brain when I think about South Africa and the people we interacted with is this vibrancy. Like, there's for people like the people of Egoli that have every reason to lay down and die, there's so much life there. And they were super receptive. We only got to really minister, quote unquote, minister one Sunday with them. But seeing them worship just to can music on the TV playing, they worshiped as if it was a full band with
Yeah.
every bell and whistle you could think of. And it was incredible. Like, they are so full of life and so rich in things that we know nothing about. And I think that was really what stuck out to me the most.
Yeah. Kobe?
Man, the people of South Africa, I feel like we could try to replicate that in the States,
Mhm.
and we could try as hard as Americans could try,
Yeah.
and we would come nowhere near close it to the people of South Africa.
Yeah.
Reason being is because, like what Tyler's saying, it's very much ingrained in Americans to pick me.
Yeah.
You could say, hey, we want to build a community like this, and you would have hundreds or thousands of people in America be like, pick me, I want to do that.
Mm.
And they show up, and then when the community no longer benefits them, they're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And then, like what Charles talking about, you've got the people of Egoli that is still the people of South Africa
Yeah.
that is not benefiting from the community,
Yeah.
but they're still like, I'm part of the community.
Yeah.
And so, what Zach said was something that was said to us on the streets when we were walking around, just looking around and doing some shopping. We wasn't doing much. And we walked by this one lady's booth, and she's like, here, get this tablecloth. And it's this beautiful tablecloth that's got these silhouettes of African women carrying stuff on their heads and these beautiful patterns that they're wearing and stuff. And we're like, no, thank you. And she's like, no, take it. And JJ's like, we're looking for something different. We're looking for something that doesn't have people on it. We're looking for something that's more Africa.
Mm.
And the lady stopped her and she said, this is Africa. Africa's not Africa without the people.
Mm.
And she's like, oh, she said, you got me.
Got checked.
And so she said this, and of course she's saying this to make a sale, but at the same time she's making a statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, Africa's not Africa without the people.
For sure.
Right.
South Africa would not be South Africa if it wasn't for the South Africans that lived their life the way they lived their life.
Mhm.
So we could go in there and try and teach them to live a life better, or live a life that looks more kingdom.
Mm.
And it's still, in doing so, we would be making South Africa look a little less like South Africa.
Yeah.
And so the people of Egoli that Charlo was talking about when they're in there worshiping, I talked about that this morning, of how these people literally walk there, some of them barefooted, and all of it's dirt. Egoli's dirt.
Yeah.
There's trash everywhere. We're not talking about chip bag trash. We're talking about there is broken glass, there is nails, there's rusty metal, there's jagged metal all in the ground,
Yeah.
sticking up, that they had to walk through to get to church in a building that has no AC. And they get in there and start singing about the goodness of God.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got people here in America that complain the music's too loud.
Yeah.
This seat's not that comfortable. I don't like this church because the AC is not cold enough. I don't like that church because they keep it way too hot in there. And they complain about every little thing. Meanwhile, these people go and live in a place that most of American dogs live in better.
Yeah.
And then they come to church, and if anyone in the earth has enough excuse to complain about how God is not good to them,
Mm-hmm.
it would be these people.
Yeah.
But there's something within the people of Egoli that they realize that God is good, and the goodness of God is for everyone, including them.
Mm-hmm.
Even in their situation, He is being good, and He is faithful to them.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, the one Sunday that we were there and we were ministering, I was talking I was speaking at one point. I was like, there is nothing that we can bring to give you, to teach you to be better at what you're doing that you're not already doing.
Yeah.
God is not wanting Egoli to look a little bit more like America.
Yeah.
God is not wanting South Africa to praise and worship a little bit better like America. No, God wants South Africa to look like South Africa.
Yeah.
Because there's something in South Africa that America needs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so the people of South Africa, you could easily have these videos of the people either on the street or in businesses or in Egoli, and you'd be like, oh man,
Yeah.
they're so poor. Or, oh man, I wish we could give them this. Or, oh man, I wish we could teach them that. I wish we could help them do this better or do that better. They don't have to do things better
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing they need to do is listen to the Holy Spirit, guide them into who they are supposed to be.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be another America.
Mhm.
They're supposed to be South Africa.
Yeah.
One thing we were talking with JJ the last day we were there was about, I was telling her about South Africans. I don't know if she's noticed it, but for me personally, I can tell I'm talking to a South African long before they say, hey, I'm from South Africa.
Mm.
Because there is an authority and a power that they carry on their voice
Yeah.
when they're speaking. And it's in their accent, but at the same time, it's part of who they are.
Mm.
I was telling her about this one individual that we know that is from South Africa. And like, we known him for a couple months before we knew he was from South Africa. And from the first time we met him, I told Tyler he's from South Africa. Because you can hear it on his voice. When he starts speaking, there is authority in what he's saying.
Yeah.
Not that he's trying to like boss the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that he's trying to say, oh, look at me. You know, I've got authority on my voice. No, he's just speaking plain, having normal conversations. And there's an authority that is on his voice that captures the attention of a room. And it's like that every time I listen to a South African.
Mhm.
So then when you get in a room full of South Africans and they're all talking and
Yeah.
everyone's capturing the attention of the room, that's what South Africa is to me, and the people of South Africa is to me.
Mm.
It's a people that they're not pick me.
Yeah.
And because they're not pick me, the Lord can trust them with gaining the attention of a room.
Mm. Yeah.
He can place an authority and power on their voice because he knows they're not going to neglect it.
Yeah.
Where in America, if he does that, you'll see the next politician rise
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Mhm.
So y'all touched on too how y'all got to go to at least one service and minister a little bit. What was that like? Just during that service and that time of ministry, what'd you guys experience? What'd you get to do, and what'd you get to see? Zach, if you want to start off with that,
Excuse me.
you're good.
So it was Sunday, and this was our first time in the Dream Center on the
Mhm.
trip. This was my second time back, so it was interesting, amazing.
Real quick, can you explain what the Dream Center is?
Oh, the Dream Center is Pastor Brian and Glinda's church, or not their church, but their church building,
Mhm.
and it's kind of not. It's kind of like right by Egoli, so not necessarily in Egoli. It's not in Egoli. It's like it's right.
Just outside.
Yeah, it's just right by it. So it's kind of like a city on a hill
Mhm.
for Egoli. Um, yeah. So the last time I was there, they didn't have a roof. They didn't have a lot of the things they have now. It was basically just they had walls. And then going there now, they've got roofs. They've got their kitchen. They've got so much done that it was just amazing to see the growth from where they were last time, and then where they are now. It's just amazing to see. But So we each had our turn getting to speak, and it was Charla, then me, then Kelby, then Tyler,
Mm.
and that was interesting because JJ told us that we were going to be speaking and ministering days before, and but I don't think really any of us prepared anything. We were just kind of felt led to just go
Yeah.
and just hear what the Spirit was saying and then just deliver it then, which is unusual for me because usually I like to write it down, prepare it. But
Mhm.
even I couldn't even get myself to write anything down. It was
Same.
just
Oh, I
like,
know the
Yeah.
feeling. Trust me.
I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna. I guess I'm not gonna write anything down. I was like, no, I need to have notes so I can have something to look at or something to go back to if my mind goes blank. But I couldn't get myself to write anything down. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go in here, and that's what we all did.
Yep.
And so, and then we just spoke what we heard God speaking at that time, and I think it was pretty good. We ended up kind of saying little bit of the same things.
We had a connecting thread.
Yeah, a connecting thread
Always
through
is.
each of
Yep.
what we were saying. So, and then we got to pray for people, and yeah, it was good.
Tyler, your experience on the ministry side of things?
It was just as real as the people,
Mm.
and that was one of the things that I was when it was my turn to say something. That was one of the things that I was telling them. Um, we got there that morning, and it was like some of the kids they'd done a couple dances and stuff, super cool.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed watching all that because they were all in it, you know, all the kids that were doing it. It was 100% from all of them,
Yeah.
which you don't always see here.
Yeah, for sure.
um, Especially when it's just like a group of kids from a church, you know. They might know all the moves and be able to do it, but that doesn't mean that they're all in it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
But these kids were 100% and then some, all in it. And so then we get up. They call us up there and worship too. Everyone there
Mhm.
wasn't anybody there that wasn't all in.
Yeah.
It was refreshing
Hmm.
because you don't always get that here.
No, for sure.
You'll have people that are just standing there waiting for it to be over,
Mhm.
and then you've got these people that live like they do
Yeah.
and in the conditions that they do walk here,
Yeah.
and then they're just can't wait to get started.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not waiting for it to be over. They can't wait for it to get started.
Yeah.
It's a completely different heart posture towards ministry,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're part of the ministering or just somebody that's in the congregation there. It's the same for all of them.
Yeah.
They all have a heart for worship. They have a heart for the Father. They have a heart for whatever they can do. It goes back to the being receptive. Whatever the Father has for them, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so we were. They got through everything, the dancing and the worship and all that stuff, and they called us up there. And so JJ went up and she was just kind of opening it up and talking a little bit, and she had us line up to the side up there. And so I was last, like Zach was saying. I'm just sitting over there listening, and at this point, it's like he said, none of us really had anything planned. There was nothing planned. I don't think there was anything planned about anything we done on this trip, other than
Just
JJ had an idea of how she maybe wanted things to go,
Yep.
Yeah.
and other than that, though, we really didn't plan, like
Yep.
sit down and talk about this and this and this and this is how we're going to do it. We
Yep.
just done it.
Yep.
So we're setting up there, and JJ's talking, and they have a like a podium, but it's like a little shelf,
Mhm.
like a 2-tier shelf, like what we would have for like in a corner
Entertainment center.
or an entertainment center or something,
Mhm.
just a little wood plank thing that somebody there probably built.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had a vase with flowers and stuff, looked nice. And we're sitting there, and JJ walks up there, and she bumped it while she was talking, and the water in the vase was moving. I was like, man, that's crazy. And so then I'm looking at this vase full of flowers with water in them. I was like, that's a vase full of real flowers.
Mhm.
I was like, man, that's crazy. How many churches here could you go into and them have a vase?
Here being America.
Here being America.
Yeah.
How many churches could you go to that have a vase full of real flowers that they cut in water?
Yeah.
And so when I got up there and was talking to him about everything that I had to share, that was one of the main things that I brought up was that the people there are real to the point that they have real flowers, and they thought it was funny
Yeah.
to start with. They were all laughing which sometimes that's just how it goes, man. I'll be when it's time for me to share something, I'll be talking and people will be laughing, and then they just get poked.
Yeah.
And it works the same way with me. It's the same way that I get it. It's funny to think about, that they've got real water and real flowers, and so they're laughing. And I was like, but I could take you to 1,000 churches in America, and not one of them have real flowers and real water, because it's easier to just put a fake one there that looks real than it is to actually take the time to cut them and then take care of them. Because if you stick them in that vase without water, they're going to wilt. There wasn't one of these flowers in this vase that was wilted. And the same vase was still there 3 days later because they were taking care of it. And they didn't just throw them away. They took them out and went and took care of them somewhere else. They didn't just trash stuff just because it was, at some point they're all going to die, those flowers. But that didn't change the value of what they are now. Just because they're done with them for this service, throw them away. They kept them alive that whole time. It's something we don't really do here. Like 90% of I'm sure there's a church somewhere that's got real flowers and real plants. I'm not saying none of them are, but the mainstream ministry and church in America is, and not just in the plants and flowers. There's a lot of fake junk in ministry in the United States and everywhere else in the world, but everything there is very real, down to the plants on top of the podium. Everything about Africa reflects what Africa is, but especially the people. So you can see the trees, like I said, you can see the real flowers, and all that stuff's real. But if you watch the people, you don't even have to see the rest of the stuff to know that, because it's reflected in who they are and how they operate, even in things they don't know. They're just real about everything. But especially in ministry, they take it very seriously, as opposed to some people here don't take ministry so serious. I know none of us here can say that because we all take it pretty serious. But I'm sure we've all met people that didn't take it so serious.
Absolutely.
You would have to look very hard to find that there, if you could find it at all.
Charla, your take?
So like apparently a few of us here, I had tried to prepare something, read scriptures, prayed, did the whole thing, and nothing came up. And I was like, okay, this is a great way to start this. So then I that next morning Tyler came downstairs. I was already down eating breakfast or whatever. I was like, did you prepare anything? And of course Tyler said no, as we all know already. And I was like, okay. And then we found out that everybody didn't prepare anything. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll just let the guys go first, and then something will spark. Because this has happened a couple of times before, like when I just didn't have anything, and I just ended up getting up, and something sparked off of what somebody else said. So I was like, okay, as long as I don't go first, it's fine. And then JJ leaned up to me from the second row. We were all sitting in the front, and it was right before. No, it was during worship. And she leaned up to me and she was like, hey, just to give some order so we don't look awkward with nobody trying to grab the mic. It's like she knew us before we had to do anything.
Yeah, she understood.
And she was like, hey, so when we go up there, I'm going to introduce you and you're going to start off. I just stared at her for a second and I was like, I know she just didn't tell me to start. I don't have a dang thing yet. So then she was like, so it's not weird. You're going to start off and we'll go to Zach and Kelby and Tyler, and then I'll tie a little bow on it at the end, right? So I'm like, okay, Abba, you better say something real quick. So then my mic starts turning, and I don't do on the fly speaking at all.
Yeah.
It's not my forte. It was that day though, hopefully. So I get up there and I just kind of go with it. Whatever Abba's saying, I hope it was Abba because that's the only thing that was going to minister to these folks. Because, like, nothing I have, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
connects.
Yeah.
Nothing I have
Yeah.
will change anything about their lives.
Yep.
But what I do have is Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
And Holy Spirit can do all of that.
Yeah.
Just like we said in the beginning.
Mhm.
So that's why hopefully it was Abba. And then I get down from there and I was like, dang it. I said like the main part of what I was going to say, but I don't think it tied into anything of what the rest of my brain was going on.
Mhm.
Hopefully it made sense to somebody. And then it ended up tracking through
Yeah.
everybody else's stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just really cool to see Abba show up.
Kelby?
Yeah. So for me, again, fitting with the narrative, I had nothing. I come down the stairs that morning, and Charlotte's sitting at the table, and she's like, "Kelby, do you have anything for service this morning?" I said, "Nope, not a thing." She said, "Okay, that's 3 of us." And so she said, "Neither do I or Tyler." I was like, "That's great." So the Lord's either going to show up and we're going to have a really nice service, or we going to listen to ourselves instead of Holy Spirit, and this is about to be one terrible service.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, well, hopefully Holy Spirit will take over. And so I'm sitting there thinking, good Lord, what can I share to, because at this point we haven't went to Egoli yet.
Oh, really?
And so I'm like, I've not met any of them other than Pastor Brian and Pastor Glenda. That's the only ones I know. And so I'm like, and JJ, I was like, I have nothing to go off of. I have no idea where to study, what to study, how in depth to study, which is usually like what Zach's talking about. Usually, when I'm doing something, I study.
Mhm.
Like when we do camp,
Yeah. You're a hard studier.
I study, and then I study what I'm studying,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
I do extensive deep dives into the topic at hand.
Mhm.
Well, you can't do that when you don't have a topic. And so I was like, I haven't studied anything. I'm not prepared. And so then I hear this little voice of Andy Pippin in the back of my head.
It's
You
not
gotta
about
be,
you.
you got to be ready in season and out of
Oh,
season.
yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yep,
That's another
yep.
good one.
And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, Lord, only you know what to say.
Mhm.
So we're riding. We're going down the road. And it's like, it's one of those things where you see this clock ticking.
Take it away.
And it's not one of those cool clocks. It's one of those old clocks, and it's just the numbers are flipping. And you're like, oh shoot. It's getting closer and closer, and I've got jack squat. And so then we're like turning off this main road onto the dirt road. And JJ, being JJ, turns on this song. Great song. And I'm like, I know she is not about to jam out right here at the church. JJ turns this song on, lets down her window, puts one hand on the wheel, puts her hand outside the window. And I'm like, this woman really just out here trying to vibe with this song. And then I'm watching her, and she's singing, but she's stretching her hand out the window. And so she's not out here just like out on a casual Sunday drive going to the Dream Center.
Mhm.
She's declaring this song over Egoli.
Yeah.
Because when she turned off that road, she turned onto the road that's going into Egoli.
Yeah.
And so she's declaring this song over Egoli, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is insane. Like, this is actually happening.
Mhm.
She's been there multiple times.
Yeah.
She still feels a need to declare over this region.
Yeah.
And so that was the first eye-opening moment for me of just that day.
Mhm.
And then we're going down the road, and she's telling people good morning. Some people she knows, some people she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And I was just talking about this earlier. You could see them light up when she would tell them good morning,
Yeah.
because they've seen a lot of people come in there that see them, but they don't actually see them.
That's good. Yeah.
They look through them is what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not looking at them.
Yeah.
But JJ is being personal, and she's not just like cruising down the road so that she can hurry and get to church. She's just like rolling through there.
Yeah.
And almost stopping at every person she's seeing and telling them good morning. And like they light up and tell her good morning. And so she'll do this, and then as she's going down the road, she'll see someone she recognizes, and she'll say their name and tell them good morning. And like they'll turn around because they hear their name, and they're just like so ecstatic. A lot of them was kids, and then they would start chasing the car as we're going down the road.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're sitting back there. We just know JJ, so we know how she is. But if you don't know JJ, you're like, this woman's a celebrity in Egoli. Like they are chasing the car, yelling JJ, JJ, and like she's just being who she is. So then we get to the dream center. Like my mind had stopped thinking about, oh, the clock's ticking, so you got to come up with something. And then we get there, I'm like, oh crap,
I'm here.
I'm here. I have nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, good Lord, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I open the door, and as soon as I step out of the car, the Lord says, this is a seed. I was like, okay, that's cool. I have no idea where to go with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Thanks, God. And so then, of course, sitting there, the Lord just keeps dropping more and more into your spirit. And
Yeah.
so he was saying that ministry is a seed in Egoli, that is planting seeds in Egoli.
Yeah.
And so Zach described it as being sort of like a city on a hill for Egoli.
Yeah.
That is what the Dream Center is. The kids there know it as a place that they're guaranteed a meal if they go during the day.
Yeah.
They teach them stuff while they're there. They read them stories.
Mhm.
Pretty much, they show affection that these kids wouldn't necessarily be getting.
Yeah.
The adults know it as a place that they can come and talk to Pastor Brian and Glenda about stuff.
Yeah.
And that they can get good counsel on stuff.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, it's a seed, planting seeds, you know. JJ informed us one of the days we're there beforehand. She was talking about the goal of Egoli. The dream is that one day Egoli does not exist. And so I'm hearing this, and I'm like, wait a minute, we're coming to build structures in Egoli.
Yeah.
Why are we building structures if one day we're praying that Egoli doesn't exist?
Yeah.
And then she clarified it later on in the trip that the houses that we were building is not their new nice house that they're getting.
Right.
It's a stepping stone to their nice house that they're getting.
Gotcha.
So the dream is that not the dream. It's not a dream. It's a goal.
Yeah.
The goal is that one day Egoli does not exist.
Yeah.
And that there's no one living in Egoli. And that it's all pretty much tore down. And so I'm sitting, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm trying to wrap my American mind around if this is a seed in this community, and the goal is one day that Egoli doesn't exist, then how does this line up? Because when you plant a seed, the seed is then established there, and trees don't move. And then the Lord said, except this one specific tree. And I was like, I'm sitting there for a minute. I was like, no, trees don't move. He said, the trees of Ecuador, which I had previously studied and shared it before at our church. I was like, oh. And so quickly, I take out my notes. I'm like, this place is a seed. And then I space, drop down the trees of Ecuador. Space, drop down. And then I have this word that our father, which is a pastor, mine and Tyler's father is a pastor, this word that he released in our house that I picked up because it's a word over Egoli. So I wrote it down. And went and took it with me to Egoli. And so that's all I had on my notes. So I go up there and I'm talking about, the Lord said this place is a seed, and it's a seed, planting seeds in the community. And it's a word from the Lord. So they're just like loving it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but this isn't your typical seed. How when it's planted, it's established and it does not move.
Yeah.
This is a seed that's planted. But like the trees in Ecuador that walk, you're not going to stay here.
Mm.
You're not bound here. And so I briefly went into the study done on the trees in Ecuador and how they will move.
Yeah.
It's been studied that they will, if a tree falls on them, they will pull themselves over using their roots and move themselves so that they're back rightly aligned.
Wow.
And so just these couple things was able to give me enough of stuff to have some sort of substance
Yeah.
that later on Pastor Brian was telling us some stuff and like it was completely spot on.
Mhm.
It's not something that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just me being obedient and listening to the Lord when I step foot out of the car and he says, this place is a seed. Now, it was then my opportunity to either sit there and say, that's Kelby. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that's Kelby. I'm not even going to think about that. In which case, I wouldn't have heard this is a seed that's planting seeds. And I wouldn't have heard the walking trees of Ecuador. And then I'm liable to have gotten up there and just spewed a bunch of American garbage
Yeah.
that we call gospel and that we call kingdom.
Yeah.
That they don't need tainting their relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
But instead, I could be obedient in a moment and listen to something. And then, as we learned the other year at Sons Gathering, steward that
Mhm.
and let that germinate. Let that word germinate and let Holy Spirit grow it. Not Kelby trying to figure out, okay, well, how does this seed move?
Yeah.
And then me trying to do a bunch of Google researching. No, I have to ask the question, how does seeds move? And Holy Spirit says the walking trees of Ecuador is proof.
Mhm.
And so then it's not me, it's Holy Spirit saying, this is the answer. This is the next answer. This is the next answer.
Mhm.
And all I have to do is be obedient and listen.
Yeah.
And so what started out in the morning with Charla saying, are you prepared? And I'm like, no. And then she's like, neither am I. Neither is Tyler. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, none of us have anything.
Yeah.
We're not prepared.
Yeah.
But when you're obedient, there's this thing with obedience where obedience can help you be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're obedient and you're listening, God can pull stuff because He is all knowing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be all knowing
Yeah.
because He is.
Yep.
Where we are weak, He is made strong. And so you can show up somewhere and be like, I don't know what the Lord wants me to say, but I know He has something for me to say.
Yeah.
And then not try to take something and make something out of it,
Hmm.
but take what He has given you, let Him build it, and then release it. And that's what all four of us done.
Yeah.
Is we just took what He gave us in the moment and then let Him build from there.
Mhm.
And it's amazing looking back that none of the four of us had anything planned, yet it's almost like we sat down and wrote it out.
Yeah.
And had this perfect flow of a theme, if you'll call it that JJ had a prophetic word that she had previously wrote out.
Oh, really?
And this flowed right into it. It was insane.
Mhm.
But it just goes to show what happens when you
Or no one?
surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you surrender and you're obedient
Mhm.
and you let Abba have His way in a service and not Kelby's way in a service.
Yeah.
Because if Kelby would have planned the service, it probably would have looked completely different, and it probably wouldn't have reached near as many people if it reached anyone.
Right. 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 Just out of curiosity, I just got to thinking when you're talking about Egoli, you're talking about the goal. It just sparked me to look up what Egoli means. Did they talk about what Egoli means at
Yeah.
all? Do you know the meaning?
Yeah.
Can you share what that is?
So, Egoli means city of gold, or another translation would be golden city.
Yeah, so I found that interesting.
Mhm.
I was sure this one actually is slightly, well, I'll say slightly a little different. The one I looked up was it said in the goal, so it included goal for some reason in that word.
Mhm.
But I just thought that was interesting how they
Yeah.
kind of tied itself together. I figured it had some type of importance, but the goal kind of that and makes me think a little bit more too as well. But after the service, you guys started to get a little bit more hands on. You had some things you had to do, or I say had to do, but were had the pleasure of doing. One was painting a mural, excuse me, and the second was actually building some more homes for these guys. So, y'all want to explain? Charlie, we'll start off with you. You had this mural you wanted to paint. Can you explain the idea behind it and what exactly did you paint there?
Okay, so at the Sons gathering, I had originally, well, Pastor Brian was brought to me in the entourage of KLM folks who know me, and he told me he was interested in having some murals painted, but I ended up not getting back with him because JJ was doing a lot of the communications between Brian and us. So I was like, okay, well, JJ's talking about me doing a drama class instead of doing the mural, so I'll just table that. This isn't my only time going to South Africa. I know that this is just the first time.
Yeah.
Murals will be later.
Yeah.
So we get there,
Hmm.
and murals were not later. Murals
Laters
were
were now.
now. So
Praise
JJ tells me before we even get to see the wall or anything that I'm painting, and she's like, Pastor Brian wants you to do a mural on this wall that's going to be um beside a soccer field, and tells me like very basic. So I'm like thinking, okay, the wall's going to be probably this wall right here.
Yeah.
That
Very
big.
small.
I don't know what it's for, but it's there, so we'll paint on it.
Mhm.
If you don't know, the soccer boys are a group of young men who are creating a soccer team with the Dream Center with Pastor Brian as the coach. I believe there might be
Oh,
some
really?
other coaches that are there, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Pastor Brian. And they just got donated a bunch of jerseys and basically sports equipment for them to be like a legit soccer team.
Yeah.
And JJ created this logo for the DC Lions. That's their sports team.
Awesome.
Yeah, super cool. So I was like, okay, I would love to utilize that somehow and maybe make it a field and make it like have these silhouettes of not silhouettes, figures like from the waist down playing soccer.
Yeah.
So that's what I ended up like putting together in one of my 1 to 3 a.m. wake up mornings. Showed JJ. She got really excited about it. So then we went to see Pastor Brian. I think a couple days before the whole team got to meet him and to pick up a bag or something. So he shows me this wall. The wall is like 5 times as big as what I anticipated, and it's not finished being built. Like not even half of it has been laid. Only a small section of it has had the cement or whatever it was smoothed out so they could even paint on it. No primer has been made. No paintbrushes or paint have been purchased for me. So I'm like, oh my word. And this is Friday. And I'm supposed to get started on Monday. So 2 days for this entire wall to be built with the cement put over it, primed, and ready for me to paint. So I was like, all right, if you can get this done, I can get this done. We'll see how it goes. Monday rolls around. More of the wall has been built. A section of it has been primed, but there's still no paints or paintbrushes for me to work with. Pastor Brian says, is that going to be a problem? And I was like, I would really like to get started tomorrow at the latest. Please. We get there the next day, and I'm already like feeling down on myself because like a mural's not practical like these houses are going to be. I can't do anything to help them with the houses because that's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I held drills for them for the first 30 minutes I was there on the job site, and they didn't even use the drills. So like I'm already feeling out of place and like out of pocket and all those fun things. So then finally, after our lunch on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday. After lunch on Tuesday, Pastor Brian brings me my paints and paintbrushes and paint rollers. There is a small section of the wall, probably about halfway at this point, that is painted and ready for me to get started on. And I get to start for an hour because I had to come back in to do my drama class
Oh,
at 4. So I was like, we're going to run with this and get done what we can get done. I ended up simplifying the plan just a little bit, but like jumped on it and got, I think, one of the figures done that first day in the soccer ball, and then found out it was actually a multi-purpose field, sports field. So they're going to have several different lines painted on it in different colors so they can play different games. So I was like, okay, well, if it's multi-purpose, I don't want it to all be soccer players. So I ended up with a soccer player, a cricket player, and a rugby player. So and then in the center of it, because this is vision for these kids and for the people that are coming in here, something that's going to hopefully be part of what propels them to do something more than what they've been told they can do. You know what I'm saying? So with the DC Lions logo as the O's for all of the phrases, it says "you can, you will" in the center of it. So I was lucky enough that I think 12, 15 hours was enough for me to get it done, but it was in a great stopping point. And there is a section that wasn't quite finished on the wall for me to paint or anything. But there's room for me to add to it later if we need to add to it, or they can bring in other artists to add to it as well. So, but I think honestly, I'm happy with it, and I don't think I could have done better with what I was given.
Yeah. Yeah. Tyler, Kelby, Zach, you guys got to do a little bit of something different. Y'all actually got to build. What was that experience like? And I heard there was a little bit of a learning curve involved in that, so I'm really curious to hear about it. So, Tyler, if you want to start.
Well, the learning curve part was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'd probably be best if we just start at the beginning. So the Monday we're supposed to get started building.
Mhm.
They have nothing to build with.
No material.
No
There was
materials.
no materials there for us to build with, so we had nothing to do. So we ended up waiting around until like lunchtime, I think, or a little after.
Yeah.
They finally stuff was finally delivered. Uh, the slab, because we're supposed to be pouring slabs on these houses
Mhm.
so that rats don't get in, because
Yeah.
they've got these big rats and they burrow. So even if you build the walls where they can't get through them, they'll just tunnel under and get inside. And so
Nice.
then they chew up everything.
Yeah.
And then if you any food these people do have, they'll eat it. And so they want to pour concrete in the floor and then build from that so that the rats can't get in, and just so they don't have a dirt floor,
Yeah.
because that's what all of them have.
Yeah.
So the slab, the foundation part, is not finished on the house they want us to start on.
Mhm.
On top of that, we don't have materials to do the job, so there's no house to build when we get there. And so we waited around for a little while, and they finally get the stuff there, but the concrete's not done.
Yeah.
So while we while we are trying to build a house, they're still doing concrete in the middle,
Concrete.
pouring concrete in the middle, because they don't have concrete trucks. They're pulling wheelbarrows
Yeah.
and walking all the way to the Dream Center with a wheelbarrow and getting a wheelbarrow of rocks, bringing it back, getting a wheelbarrow of sand, and bringing it back, and getting the cement in bags dropped off with a truck.
Yeah.
And then they just have this big pile that they're mixing on the ground, because they don't have a mixer either. They're out there with shovels. So it takes a while
Mhm.
to pour it. It
Yeah.
ain't just like when we pour something, we can pour a whole house in like an hour.
Yeah.
These guys were out here all day.
Yep.
trying
To
to
do a
pour
whole
and
house.
to do a whole house. And
It's
these
way
are little
smaller.
bitty little houses.
Mhm.
They're not. They're like sheds
Yeah.
They're
that we
3
have.
meters by 9
3
meters.
meters by 9 meters. That's another thing. They're on the metric system there.
Somebody equivalent
Their
that to
tapes,
feet.
yeah.
No, thank
Their
you.
tape has meters
Yeah.
and centimeters and millimeters.
Oh yikes.
So where
No inches.
here I can look at something and tell you about how big it is
Right.
in inches because this is all I've ever done.
Yeah.
And all I've ever used is inches. So on
Mhm.
like my hand, I know how many inches long my hand is, how wide it is, my thumb, all that stuff, just so I can look at something
Mhm.
and it
know
just
how
be
big it
quicker
is, yeah.
and have a reference.
Yeah.
And not there because it's completely different. That was I was like I saw the tape and I was like wow. And so
Culture shock.
yeah, culture shock. And so we had this this kid working with us. His name is Gabriel. He's 19, and he's been working. I don't know how long he's been working with them,
I don't either.
but his uncle, I guess it's his biological uncle. I don't know. They call everybody uncle and aunt over
I
there,
don't think it's
so it may or may not be his uncle, but he calls him Uncle Pat.
Uncle Pat.
This guy's older. He knows how to do this. He's like on an actual crew, which Gabriel works with him and stuff too. But
Yeah.
like he's doing legit building,
Mhm.
so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing here,
Right.
but going over there, they don't build everything the same way, especially in Egoli. They're trying to do it as cheap as they can, so that it can go a
Cost
long way.
efficient.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost as much. But at the same time, they want something nicer than what they've already got out there, which isn't hard to do because some of that stuff is just trash put together pretty much.
Yeah.
But we were out there that first morning and he's explaining because he's got a job that he's got to go do.
Mm.
He can't stay and babysit us all week.
Yeah.
And so he spent probably 30 minutes, maybe 45, but it was closer to 30, telling us how to build it. And he's telling us like he's giving us measurements in metric that I'm having to remember. And then he's like, and you're gonna do this way and this way. So I'm in my head picturing this house here, which is if you do it a lot, it's easy for me to do here.
Mhm.
Someone tell me I want this, I can see it, so I can build it.
Yeah.
So there, he's telling me all this stuff, and I can see it, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this is way different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
But I ain't gonna just quit just because it's hard, and I'm not gonna give up on it. So he explains all this stuff, and Kelby and Zach are there to help us, help us. And he stuck around for a little while, kind of walking us through some of it while we were building. But then it got to a point he had to leave, and so then it's just us and Gabriel and like one other dude showed up, and it was the learning curve was difficult to start with, but once we found a rhythm and just started going with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. And so they get the materials there. The reason there's not materials there because like here we would go order stuff and
Mhm.
have it delivered before we ever get started.
Right.
It'd be there waiting on us, so that when we get there that morning,
Just start
we
building.
can just go.
Yeah.
But there, if you deliver it and no one's there, it's not going to be there when you get there.
I see.
All of it will disappear.
Yeah.
Including the cement, the rocks, and the sand.
That's why all of that stuff was at. Like you can't even leave a pile of rocks out there, or it'll disappear. Or sand,
Yeah.
it'll disappear because
Yeah.
it's worth something.
Mm-hmm.
So all this extra work that goes into this
Mm-hmm.
that slowed everything down because you can't, for no other reason than you can't just leave stuff there.
Yeah. You got to order it when you need it.
You have to order it when you need it, and then you're waiting on the delivery.
Yeah.
So that's the problem we had. We had to wait on it to be delivered, and then when it finally did get there, and we're all there, then he has to walk us through how to do it, and pray we remember it. So we get into it, and the first house, it took a while to build it. I think we worked on it for like 3 days almost.
3 days.
The second house, because the first one we worked on it for 2 days, or day and a half because that
Mhm.
first day was short.
Mhm.
We worked on it for a day and a half and got it almost finished. So now I know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So I understand how the next one needs to go. If we'd have had a full day, we could have built the second one in a day. We could have finished it in a day.
Yeah.
Which now we could probably go finish one in a day because we have an understanding of how they work
Yeah.
and what to do and how they want it put together
Mhm.
and the need there.
Yeah.
'Cause we could have just slapped it together and been done, but if it's not meeting the need that they have, or if it's subpar, then they're not going to be any better off than anything else they've built.
Yeah.
There's one house we were building for one of them. We only built two. Originally, we were supposed to do four, is what they said.
Mhm.
And then we get there, and they're like, "Well, it's three, and then there's a fourth one that we need to fix because it's just got problems." And so then, as the further in the week we get, the the second one which it doesn't make any sense unless you were there. The second house we were doing, that slab was finished. It was already poured hard. It was ready to go. But they wanted the other one built first. So while we're building and they're working on concrete, in my mind, I'm like, we could have built that one
Yeah. Yeah.
and let them finish this. But yeah, this is Africa. That we heard that a lot while we were there. And so we get on them and we get it. And the problem, because like we're it's nothing new to us. We'll work all day
Mhm.
and just until there's like we cannot work anymore
Yeah.
if we had to.
Yeah.
Problem is they have load shedding in Africa,
Right.
which means they'll just cut the power off.
Yeah.
For 2 hours at a time.
2 hours at a time.
Yeah, I think it was
Sorry.
2 hours there
Mhm.
is what we were looking at. So by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have no power.
Mhm.
And then you've got like 3 hours maybe of daylight left. So by the time the power comes back on, because you can't leave that stuff there,
Yeah.
you either sit there for 2 hours doing nothing, or you
Mhm.
pack all of it up and
Take it
carry it back.
Dang.
Pack it all.
So by 4 o'clock every day, there was nothing else for us to do. And like there was one of them, we had like 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes of work left,
4 o'clock struck.
and 4 o'clock hit.
Man.
And we couldn't cut like two pieces of metal we had to put on,
Yep.
being completely finished with the house.
Wow.
So we had to pack everything up with them two little pieces not put on and go back around there.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, man. It was crazy. It was wild. Definitely different than what I'm used to here. Like we used a lot of different tools. Like here we'll put a house together with a nail gun quick.
Yeah.
They don't even their building supply there. So like they don't have Lowe's or Home Depot, but they have other things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They don't even sell nail guns.
Mhm.
Really?
The biggest gun they had shot like brad nails,
Yep.
pin nails. And that was it. I'm like, well, we can't build a house with that.
Yeah.
We were going to go get a compressor and a nail gun and just leave it with
Mhm.
them
Yeah.
so
for
that
sure.
they could just put these together
Yeah.
themselves. Because like the trip wasn't never about what we could go do for them, but something that we could do to
Establish.
help
Yeah.
Something
while
we
we're
can
not
leave.
there.
Yeah.
So they've got compressors and they've got staple guns, but they don't. There was not a framing gun in the store.
Wow.
And here you can walk down an aisle and there'll be an aisle full.
Yeah. For sure.
So they didn't have that, and then so we built both of these houses with hammers. And I think I said 1,200 nails this morning, but that's not right. There was way more than that. It was probably closer to 2,000 nails that we drove in those two houses in 4 days with a hammer.
Wow.
Where here we probably could put one of those together. If you've got somebody cutting and two people building,
Mhm.
you could probably put that house up in an hour
Yeah.
with
Wow.
the stuff that we use.
Yeah.
And there it takes several hours
Man.
just because they don't have the same stuff which they couldn't afford it for one. Two, they've got to lug that stuff around. There was, I think, every day we walked tools back
Yep.
because they don't have vehicles that they can use either. Like they've got one that they all share,
Yeah.
And it was at another job.
and it was at another job, like because they do other work too, not just building houses there.
Yeah.
So there were plenty of times we walked tools. Me and Gabriel, I don't know how many times we did. We stacked boards on our shoulders and walked them all the way back around to the Dream Center because if you leave them there, they're not going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Learning curve. There's a material curve that we weren't used to.
Yeah.
All kind of stuff.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Tyler and Kelby actually do construction for a living, so it's not like they know nothing about it. They know quite a lot about it, and it's just one of those things, like you said, the learning curve. Kelby, Zach, you have anything to add to what Tyler said?
Do you?
You're the builder. I'll leave it at you.
So I know for me, I'm very much a planner,
Mhm.
and so I like to stick to plans. And so I can't stick to plans because I'm not over the trip and I'm not in control of the trip.
Mhm.
So I just have to go with the flow of the trip.
Yeah.
And so they say, we've got 4 houses to build. I'm like, okay, we're going to try our best to build 4 houses. We've got 5 days to build 4 houses. Well, at the time, 5 days to build 4 houses. We get there, we start talking about it, and it's like, Friday, we're not actually planning on coming here to build.
Mhm.
So now we've got 4 days to build 4 houses. And then they're like, well, the 4th house we're not actually building, we're gonna just fix. I was like, okay, now it's getting manageable.
Yeah.
And then first day we're there working. Or should I say the first day we're there waiting. And then we start working. I'm like, it's not looking good. And then the second day we're still on the first house. And we don't even get finished with it. And I'm like, this is not looking good at all. Third day we go out there and they're like, hey, y'all gonna start on the second one. And we'll finish up the first one later. So we start working on the second one. And like within the first hour of us being there, JJ, being JJ, has somehow talked 3 guys. Was it 3 or 4? 3 guys from the community that has no part of what we're doing, has talked them into helping us build.
Yeah.
One of them is a very knowledgeable contractor.
Oh, really?
And so, like, this dude, he comes in there and he's helping us. All of them is really helping us. But if it wasn't for this one specific guy that came in and helped us, I'm convinced that house wouldn't have been completed when we were ready to leave.
Yeah.
Because the 4th day comes by, and now we're having to finish up the first house and the second house. And so it's like, oh shoot, we're still not getting to the third one. And then we find out that the person that's going to have the third house, he doesn't even have property yet. He hasn't solidified his property.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even build a third house if we wanted to. But in my mind, on the way back from the 4th day, I'm thinking, this is a failure. Because the plan is to come build 4 houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
In actuality, the plan is to come build 3 houses and fix a house.
Yeah.
4 houses was supposed to be done when we left.
Mhm.
We've done half that.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking in my mind, we have failed this mission, if you will.
Mhm.
And then Holy Spirit corrected me, and I had to receive the whooping. The call was never to go to South Africa and build 4 houses.
Mm.
The call was to go to South Africa.
Yeah.
Because when me and Tyler agreed to go into South Africa, building wasn't even in the question.
Yeah.
It was nowhere on the itinerary.
Yeah. It got added to.
When they found out we were going and they knew that we do construction, they're like, hey, we could build some stuff.
Yeah.
So the call was never, hey, I want you to go to South Africa and build 4 houses. The call was, I want you to go to South Africa.
Mm.
Because he knew what he wanted us to do.
Yeah.
He wanted us to build 2 houses.
Yeah.
And so he's like, the call was never to go and build 4 houses.
Yeah.
Call wasn't even necessarily to go build. It's just to say yes to go.
Mhm.
And in doing so, with us saying yes, we went and built 2 houses. that will forever change the trajectory of these two families that's going to live in this house.
Yeah.
And forever change the mindsets of the people that witness these two houses going up,
Yeah.
being built.
Yeah.
One of the things that JJ talked to us about during one of the lunches while we were there, she said, I feel like the reason we're finding so much resistance in getting this done is because that's what happens when you're pioneering something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pioneers go before anyone else and they pave a way. They map out a path.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, what y'all may not realize is this is the first time a team's ever came over here to build houses.
Yeah.
This is the first time a team's ever come over here to try and teach and instill better, more efficient ways to build.
Yeah.
It's the first time a house in Egoli has ever gotten a foundation. This is the first time that people in the community has started building for someone that's not like their relatives.
Yeah.
Just start helping build.
Yeah.
There was another thing. It's the first time that it's the first time that someone was given a house, pretty much. So like these houses that we built were built by people that paid for them through donations.
Wow.
And specifically, the two houses that was built was paid for. Each one was paid for by two different individuals. So one person donated enough money for one house, and another person donated enough money for one house.
Wow.
And so, in that, looking at it that way, the trip's not a failure.
Yeah.
My idea of what the trip should have been is a failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So he knew long before I knew that we were going to build two houses.
Yeah.
Even when he was just saying, will you say yes to going to South Africa?
Mhm.
He knew that the plan was to build two houses. I knew that the plan was to go to South Africa and do whatever the Lord wanted me to do. And so for me personally, looking back at it, at first I was thinking we have failed as a team at coming and building these 4 houses.
Yeah.
And I was like, Charla accomplished way more in her 3 days than what we accomplished in our 4,
Yeah.
because she painted a whole mural.
Yeah.
Though there's more wall space, everything that she set out to paint, she painted.
Yeah.
Everything we set out to build, we did not build. And so I was looking at it from that aspect until Holy Spirit said, no, this is exactly what I wanted you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then looking at the aspect of with us building, just the fact if we went and built for 1 day
Mhm.
in Egoli, the fact that someone else showed up and was helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pastor Brian was talking about the impact that that had on the community itself, just seeing people come in and help build.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how JJ put it. JJ she was talking with those same 4 guys that was there that ended up helping us. She said, we're not here to build for Egoli. We're here to build with Egoli. And like that just stood out to me because that's exactly the reason why when we finally found out we were going to be building, I wasn't wanting to go build something for Egoli.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wanting to go build something with the people of Egoli.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we weren't going there just so that we could be extra hands for them to build a house.
Yeah.
We were going there to not necessarily teach them something because, again, they are very knowledgeable about building.
Yeah.
Gabriel was working circles around us because he knew how they built stuff.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here like, what could we teach them? Inches?
Yeah.
Give them a new measuring tape. Say, hey, this is how you measure in America. Here's inches and feet.
Yeah.
They don't need that. The metric system works great for them.
Yeah.
And so Tyler talked about it this morning about just as simple as taking a board when putting up rafters, putting it under the rafter. This is what he ended up doing while we were there. He put a board under a rafter, put a nail in it, drove it into the stud that was under it
Mhm.
to hold the board because he couldn't hold it in that position much longer, and it kept moving, and they were wanting it just perfect before they
Yeah.
hammered it in.
Yeah.
And so he put a board up, put a nail in it, and it held it still.
Yeah.
And then Gabriel said, "Okay, Tyler, you can go start doing the metal around the side." And he started doing the metal, and he said a little bit later he came in there and he saw where Gabriel done the exact same thing.
Mhm.
It's little things like that. Did we go with the intention of, hey, we're gonna teach them how to hold a rafter up? No.
Yeah.
When he done that, was he sitting there thinking, oh, let me do it like this and teach them a new way to hold rafters?
Yeah.
So people, no.
No.
He was talking about it this morning. He said the only thing he thought of was, if I was at home, what would I do right now to help this go smoother?
Mhm.
First thing was grab this board, put a nail in it, and put it in there. So that's what he done. And immediately Gabriel picked it up and started doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Now, this sounds like it's nothing. It's putting a board on a wall to hold another board.
Yeah.
What this does is enable you to put one guy doing this job and another guy, instead of helping him do this same job, go do another job.
Mhm.
And so it sounds minute, but now they can, instead of having Gabriel and someone else working on this house, they can have Gabriel build this house while they have someone else building a completely different house.
It's efficiency.
It's efficiency. So was the building part of it a failure? No. The building part of it was way more than we could have possibly done in a month of training on how to build the American way.
Yeah.
Just by simply being there in the community,
Mhm.
being the light of the world in that community,
Yeah.
lighting that place up, being who we were called to be,
Mhm.
not a contractor, being who we were called to be in that community.
Yeah.
And people witnessing that. So the building aspect of it, definitely another one of those things that I had to wrestle with for a little while.
Yeah.
And then eventually say, you know what, Lord, you're right. It wasn't a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. Zach, anything to add on that before we wrap up part 2?
One thing that was interesting was when JJ was talking to the other guys in Egoli, she was asking them why they stay in Egoli, because it's a wasteland. There's dust everywhere, there's trash everywhere.
Yeah.
There's not much opportunity to grow. And so she was asking them, why do you stay here? And they said, because everything is given to us for free. We get
Oh.
everything for free here.
Mm.
And so it's like kind of like pacified them.
Yeah.
So it was cool to go in there and have JJ actually ask them, hey, do you want to help build this with us, rather than just going in there and watching these Americans come in and just build this house.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see them join in and say, hey, you don't have to have someone give this to you. You don't have to have someone do this for you. You can do this.
Yeah.
You have the power to make this happen. You have the power
Mhm.
to build these houses yourself and build up your community yourself. You don't have to depend on a hand from the outside coming in and feeding you constantly. You can build up your life.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see.
Yeah.
I'm not really a builder, so or a
Mhm.
construction person. I built a shelf before, so I don't know how much help I was, but hopefully I was
You've
somehow.
now helped build 2 houses. So
Yeah, and that was really
you're qualified now.
yeah, that was really cool to be a part of. So yeah, that was awesome.
Mhm. I think what you were just describing goes back to the Lions, right? It kind of ties into that. You get something for free. You could become content. Like, well, I'm getting it. Like, why should I move or advance myself? So I think that was kind of cool how you tied that all together. But we're gonna wrap up part 2 here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back for part 3, and we're gonna wrap everything and kind of tie it all together, and then wrap it all up. So see you guys in part 3.